Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Kyle back with the Fantasy Headliners, and Week 6 is about in the books, which means we got to start looking towards the waiver wire for Week 7. And as always, I'm bringing you our weekly waiver wire show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Fantrax, one of the most customizable fantasy platforms that you can find out there. If you decide to sign up for an account, take a league over there, whatever sport it may be, make sure you use code word headliners when you sign up so they know who sent you over there. But listen, we've got running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends that we got to take a look at adding off the waiver wire. I've got quarterbacks and defensive special teams to stream this week. Might talk about some players to drop. But first and foremost, we've got the They Said What comments of the week. And again, highlighting some of the best comments from our videos over the past weeks. The first one is coming from Steve McClanahan. As a Bears fan, I don't want anything to do with the Aaron jersey. Let's go. Hey, you know what? We could this guy is a true Bears fan. If we give away a Packers jersey, he doesn't care. He doesn't want it. Good for you, Steve. Way to stand tall there, even though it didn't really work out this weekend. Next comment up from S.E. Daniels. What did I just walk into? My thoughts exactly when we went to the calf cam. Headliner Nation. S.E. Daniels apparently didn't love the calf cam, but listen, the Sunday morning members only live stream, when they come in, they're like, hey, swag, we need a little calf action. I got to give it to them. That's the best thing about me is my calves. Lazy 2012 says, man, they just don't make players like they used to. And here's the thing. This was a comment that was left on one of our injury videos. And I always find it funny when everyday people, especially those with the name Lazy, are talking about players not being made the way they used to because they're hurt. Well, he is right in one aspect. They don't make players like they used to. We don't have defensive back running 4.5 40s, crashing into everybody at the line. Players are much, much different these days. One of the reasons why we have so many injuries. And then finally, Renee Cisneros. Jake and Kyle, I had to come back and add another comment. Come on, guys. If I could post a screenshot of my bids at Pristine Auction, I would. You guys about to run my bank account dry. Hey, Renee, do me a favor, okay? Be careful. Don't run the bank account dry, all right? Don't do that. Treat yourself, though. Treat yourself. All right, ladies and gentlemen, those are some of our comments of the week, some of the best comments of the week on the channel. I do have to give a shout out. The best comments of the week, though, came on our Saturday night live stream when we were trying to determine what I looked like when I had the emo hairdo going down. But those are the best comments of the week. Those are some more there. Let's hop into it and let's talk about some running backs first and foremost that we should be adding this week. We're going to kick it off with two of the Cincinnati backs. And yeah, Joe Mixon looks to be healthy, right? Great game this past weekend against Detroit, but just keep these guys on your radar, right? Joe Mixon has been banged up. Lots of injuries right now in the league, especially at the running back position. So keep these guys on your radar. For whatever reason, for the last few weeks when I start recording, I get the hiccups. I have no idea what it is. But anyway, Chris Evans at only 2% owned, only 3 targets last week, but he did haul all of them in for 49 yards and a TD, 16.3 yards per reception. Good for Chris Evans. And Samaje Perine, he ended up being out because of COVID. Again, Mixon looks like he is good to go. Perine should potentially be back this week, but just keep these guys on your radar just in case something were to happen to Mixon. Again, if you're a Joe Mixon owner and you've got an extra bench spot, maybe stash Perine away or Evans just in case something were to happen again. Malcolm Brown for Miami at 9.6% owned. I don't know what's going on with Myles Gaskin. To begin the season, he was being utilized in a very small way, but efficiency was through the roof. And then all of a sudden they stopped utilizing him out of nowhere. And then 2 weeks ago, the dude just goes absolutely ham balls and has 10 receptions, catching everything coming his way. And then this week he drops 2 passes and then disappears for the rest of the game. And it's Malcolm Brown. I don't know what to do with Myles Gaskin right now. I don't want to drop him because of how good he's looked. But all of a sudden, Malcolm Brown starts being the lead back this past week. But really, at this point, the Dolphins are playing so poorly, it doesn't really matter who's the running back is because they have to throw it so much. Latavius Murray and Devonta Freeman from Baltimore. Murray, obviously the higher one to own at 45.9%. I don't really know what to do with any of these guys at this point. Murray got just under 10 touches. Freeman just got under 10 touches. Le'Veon Bell got just under 10 touches. All three of them scored a touchdown. Now, Murray and Freeman seem to be the lead backs right now. But again, we've got 6 teams on a bye this week. So we're digging deep in this video. Like, we've got to be looking at all options. We've got 6 teams on a bye. We have a ton of injuries right now. There are a lot of people who are needing help in some way, shape, or form. From Cleveland, now this is going to be a really important pickup this week. Why? Because Kareem Hunt, we don't know what his status is. I've heard some people say he's got a calf injury. I've heard some people say he has an Achilles injury. Whatever it was a non-contact injury that sent him to the ground right away, that took him to the locker room right away, and ruled him out of the game right away. So if Nick Chubb is not able to get back this week, Demetric Felton, Dearness Johnson, if I had to pick one of these guys, it is going to be Felton. Why? Because he's been the guy that is getting the most touches so far. Maybe not in a true running back sense, but being utilized out of the backfield in the slot targets. So Demetric Felton would be kind of the first guy up for me at this point, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens for the rest of the week and what's going on with Hunt and Chubb. I mentioned it in the waiver wire show last week, Mark Ingram from Houston. I mean, that's one that, listen, he's not going to do much of anything for us, right? But again, 6 teams on buys, injuries all over the place. If you need somebody to fill in, flex spot maybe, someone that can get you points, Ingram's probably going to be a guy that you could slot in and say, hey, you know, maybe he gets me 7, 8 points. Maybe that's it, but at least it's not a 0. Finally had a decent week efficiency-wise, though. Like, the volume's been there all season, but the guy hasn't even been able to come close to 4 yards a carry. He goes 73 on 18 carries this past week. So again, coming into this week, if you're desperate for somebody, I mean, I think you could probably do worse than Mark Ingram. J.D. McKissic at 46% owned. At one point last week, Antonio Gibson had to come out of the game. Now, he did end up coming back in, but he was really limited, ended up being limited this past week. I don't know what's going on with the shin at this point, but is it really worth the Washington football team to continue to run him out there? Like, if this continues to be a problem, we might see him head to IR for 3 weeks, which means McKissic would take over as the lead back. He did have 8 receptions on 10 targets, 65 yards, and then he had another 8 carries for 48 yards on the ground. So he got you about 10 fantasy points last week. In half PPR, he got you out 14 fantasy points last week, 18 if you were in a full PPR league. So you're going to need to really consider that if you are an Antonio Gibson owner, and if not, grab J.D. McKissic just in case this week, especially considering the matchup against Green Bay, utilizing him out of the backfield quite a bit. Ramondre Stevenson at only 12% owned. He's becoming the number 2 in that backfield now, okay? Not necessarily Brandon Bolden, who it was a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they came out throwing to Stevenson this week. I mean, his first 3 catches came early on in the game, and then he still had another 23 yards on the ground and a touchdown. So they're really utilizing him as that backup to Damian Harris right now, and only 12% owned. I mean, you grab him this week going up against the New York Jets. If New England's able to get out in front and play well, keep Harris healthy since, he got his bell rung a week ago. Maybe we put Ramondre Stevenson out a little bit more. Alex Collins from Seattle at only 46% owned. Somehow, some way, he is not owned in 50% of leagues. Everybody this week wanted to jump on Darrell Williams. Everyone this week wanted to jump on Khalil Herbert. Everyone wanted to jump on Devontae Booker. Nobody wanted to jump on Alex Collins. The 3 guys that I just listed were all over 70% owned, and Alex Collins sits here at 46% owned. We got to get him. And as of this recording, in the middle of Sunday Night Football, because I always record this show at halftime of Sunday Night Football. Actually, I cheated a little bit this week. I got to see the first drive. I got to see the first drive of Seattle after halftime, and then I recorded. Alex Collins marched him down the field. He looks so good against Pittsburgh. Pick him up. And Rashad Penny is coming off IR. But if Collins continues to run the way he is, they're not going to throw Rashad Penny out there right away. It will continue to be Collins' backfield. And then coming off of a bye, Ty Johnson. 2 weeks ago when he played, I mentioned him last week just in case, just to keep it all on the radar. But Ty Johnson for the New York Jets, 2 weeks ago, he split touches basically down the middle with Michael Carter. Will it be the same thing against New England? If the Jets are going to be passing it a lot again, it's probably going to be Ty Johnson who's in the backfield a little bit more. For the wide receiver position, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Khalif Raymond got off to a slow start for Detroit this past week. Kind of picked it up a little bit more in the second half. Not great performances. Khalif Raymond this past week, he only had 37 yards, but he did have 7 targets, which is great to see. 23 targets over the last 3 weeks from Amon-Ra St. Brown. TJ Hawkinson had a decent bounce back performance. But who can we really trust in Detroit right now? Nobody. How can we trust any of them right now? They're either playing like crap, not being utilized correctly. It just doesn't matter. And going up against the Los Angeles Rams, you think I want to start anyone from Detroit outside of Hawkinson? Please. Quez Watkins from Philadelphia. Zach Ertz is now out of town. So where are some of those targets going to go to? Well, Quez Watkins has started every game but one, and he has 15 targets the last 3 weeks. Now, one of those games, he only had 3 targets. So the rest of the 12 targets came in the other 2 weeks. So he could be a good guy to keep an eye on. No more Zach Ertz. Is Dallas Goedert going to just get all of those targets right away? Maybe not. Is Goddard going to block as much as he has been? Is he going to run as many routes? Because Goddard was only running about 73% Goddard was only running routes on about 73% of the passing plays for Philadelphia, while Ertz was running them on 93% of their plays. So is Goddard just going to all of a sudden jump to 90%, or are you going to see more 3 wide receiver sets now? I don't really know, but Quez Watkins is a guy to definitely keep an eye on. He's getting a little bit more looks right now than Jalen Reagor. Rashad Bateman from Baltimore at 14% owned, right off the IR, 6 targets, 4 receptions for 29 yards. Not expecting much upside from this guy, but when we run into a situation where Marquise Brown has a tough matchup, that could be a great spot for Rashad Bateman to kind of step up for this team. Darnell Mooney for Chicago, just under 50% owned. You can see Justin Fields, and you can see the game plan evolving week after week after week with the Chicago Bears offense. Now, are they where they need to be? No. But I watched every snap of this game this week, and there were some good things to see, and there were some bad things to see. But the one thing that I can tell you, Justin Fields is a playmaker, and the Chicago Bears and Matt Nagy, they need to get the F out of their head and unleash this kid and let him play the position. Because if he does, Darnell Mooney, he's going to be a big guy the rest of the season. Allen Robinson did hit the prize picks over on him this last week. Didn't have as many yards as I was hoping for, but you can see the progress. Hopefully it continues. T.Y. Hilton from Indianapolis, 80 yards and 4 receptions in his first game back. Keep an eye on that. Definitely a guy that I would be adding to my team if you need a wide receiver 3. Nico Collins for Houston, only 1.6% owned. He's back off the IR. Nobody on this team has stepped up to become the number 2 target on the team. It could easily be Nico Collins going forward. Dante Pettis from the New York Giants. Slayton is out and still hurt. Galladay is out and still hurt. Kadarius Toney got hurt this past week. Dante Pettis steps up, 11 targets last week, catches 5 of them for 48 yards. Maybe he's a guy that we have to look at. If all 3 of these wide receivers are missing next week, maybe Dante Pettis is a guy that could end up having some good value. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I keep trying to speak it into existence, ladies and gentlemen. And somebody in the comments last week, I forget who it was. It's a member here on the channel. It's someone that's been around for a long time. So I knew it was basic. I knew it was more of a joke than anything. But he was just like, Kyle, come on, you got to kill it on it. You got to calm down on DPJ, because Nothing's happening with him. I had him as a start this week, and baby, did we hit. There we go. Beating the drum for this guy for weeks now. 101 yards over 101 yards last week, 2 touchdowns. Really a go-to guy last week. OBJ did end up coming off, and then he had to come back on. We'll see what happens, but Donovan Peoples-Jones, for a while now, I've been saying that this is really a guy that could help unlock this offense. AJ Green and Christian Kirk from Arizona, both of them hovering around the 30% owned mark, going up against Houston this week. Now, Green does have touchdowns 3 out of his 6 weeks and 60 yards in 3 out of his 6 weeks, but kind of the same thing between him and Kirk. It's a little bit of an up and down performance. Now, Green has been a little bit more level in terms of his performance. We're not seeing big dips or high spikes. For Christian Kirk, it has been a little bit of a roller coaster, but he's gone over 60 yards in all but 2 games this season, but he's only scored a touchdown in week 1 and now in week 6. So that's kind of what's hurt the weeks in between. Where have those been? So if he can score touchdowns, that's great. Going up against Houston, though, probably going to have 3 of these guys as starts again. But the only concern for me then becomes, what are we doing? What are we doing if Arizona just blows Houston out and then just ends up running it with Chase Edmonds and James Conner? If that happens, then the ceiling won't be there for either of these guys. Tim Patrick for Denver, 40% owned. He finally scored. We've been waiting on it since week 1. However, Jerry Jeudy could possibly be back next week. So Tim Patrick is more of a lower priority add for me. But going up against a Cleveland team that has had a ton of issues on defense the last couple of weeks, if for some reason Jeudy is not cleared for this week, Tim Patrick is definitely a guy that we can throw in last minute. 3 guys coming off the bye, just to remind you all about. Jamison Crowder, they're going up against New England, 24% owned, was second on the team in targets 2 weeks ago. He's really been looked at a lot by Zach Wilson since coming off the IR. And then Marquez Callaway, Deontay Harris, both of them for New Orleans. Callaway's the guy. Okay, Callaway's going to be the guy that I want to add at this point. High play, high volume guy. Deontay Harris is a guy that he might have a high upside, but he's got a super low floor as well. He's a big play guy for them. Going up against Seattle, a Seattle team that has had a ton of issues this year, stopping really anybody. I mean, doesn't seem like the Seattle of old, right? It's not. So for both of these guys on Monday Night Football next week, absolutely could be an option. Now at the tight end position, a few options here, but not many. It's barren out there right now, ladies and gentlemen. Zach Ertz headed to Arizona, still just under 50% owned. He's going to get Houston this week. The trade to Arizona could end up helping him. It might take a few weeks, so be patient with him. If you own him, I'm just going to hold him. If you need help at the tight end position and you're okay holding on to him for the long term, grab him and stash him for right now. Dan Arnold from Jacksonville, they're going to be on a bye this week, but keep it in mind when they come back from a bye. Not a great stat line this week, but he still had 5 targets, and he's definitely trying to be utilized much more in that offense. Ricky Seals-Jones for Washington, under 20% owned. This is one of the guys going up against Houston. Definitely want to take a shot on him this week. He has 14 targets the last 2 weeks. He caught 4 balls for 58 yards and a touchdown this past week. Probably one of the better options to add in the short term outside of Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, touchdown in back-to-back weeks. This is a guy that I've been telling you for a few weeks now. He's taken over. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be potentially the number 1 target on this offense, right there with Jacoby Myers. Hunter Henry really showing out right now. We got to get him added. We got to get him in our lineup. Hunter Henry, for me, is a top 12 tight end the rest of the season as of right now. And then Pat Freiermuth for Pittsburgh. When I started recording this, he was leading the Pittsburgh Steelers in receiving yards against Seattle. No juju right now is really what could end up leading to some more volume for Pat Freiermuth. But again, that is another team that's going to be going into the bye, so you can probably wait for a week, but keep it on your radar. For those of you in deeper leagues, grab him if he is still out there. For the quarterback position now, to talk about some guys that we can potentially stream this week. Teddy Bridgewater from Denver at 16% owned. Again, I mentioned it with Cleveland. Now, Cleveland, to their benefit, okay, to their defense, really. Yeah, they've been blown up the last couple of weeks, but it's been to the LA Chargers, who weren't that good this week. But it's been to the LA Chargers, and it's been to the Arizona Cardinals. 2 pretty high-powered offenses, right? Denver's not really the same thing. They don't have Kyler Murray and Justin Herbert under center, right? They have Teddy Bridgewater. But I'm still going to run Teddy Bridgewater out this week. If you need a streaming option, the Cleveland defense has not looked good. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, he's been beat up. Okay, this is a defense that has had some injuries as well. So, I mean, there's worse options. They're going to be throwing it. They're probably going to be throwing it a decent amount. And it's a pretty decent matchup that's against a team that struggled the last 2 weeks. Justin Fields for Chicago going up against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay defense is still giving up some big plays. They're still beat up in the secondary. Richard Sherman is now out after trying to come out of, I wouldn't say retirement, but trying to come out of free agency and come play right away. He's there for a couple weeks, hurts the hammy. Now he's down. They've had other injuries in the back, in the secondary there. So Justin Fields, again, we're seeing little ticks up. We know that they're going to have to throw the football against Tampa Bay. They can't just continue to run it. They're going to have to open up the book a little bit more this week. Hopefully they do. And then Trey Lance for San Francisco going up against Indianapolis. Indianapolis gives up the third most fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. But is he even going to start this week? It could be him. It could be Jimmy G. There's no telling at this point who it's going to be. But if Trey Lance is out there, it could still be worth a shot, especially if Jimmy G ends up getting ruled out earlier in the week. Now, who are we going to be streaming on the defensive side of the ball? Well, Green Bay going up against the Washington football team could end up being a decent option. The secondary is beat up, but here's the thing. So is Washington. Logan Thomas is beat up. Terry McLaurin is beat up. Curtis Samuel's beat up. I mean, everybody. Antonio Gibson's beat up. Everyone's beat up in Washington right now as well. So Green Bay on a Thursday night game. Listen, absolutely. Let's take a chance on them. And only 18% owned. They're going to be available in a lot of leagues. If you need to stream a defense, going up against Washington could be a great bet this week. The Las Vegas Raiders at 23% owned, going up against Philadelphia. Philadelphia can't run the football at all right now unless it's Jalen Hurts scrambling. And then even with that being said, Jalen Hurts has not been good the past couple of weeks. Yeah, he's been a decent start for you all because he's helping out with yards on the ground. But as a passer, Jalen Hurts looks awful, especially in the first 3 quarters. It's not till garbage time in the fourth quarter when all of a sudden the guy's throwing it all over the place. Las Vegas going up against Philly. It could be a long, long day for Jalen Hurts this week. And New England going up against the New York Jets. They are over 50% owned. And normally on this video, you got to be under 50% to get into this. But the Jets, Zach Wilson threw 947 interceptions the last time they played New England. Why not take a chance on them again this week? Now let's move on over to our players to drop. And the screen might look a little weird to you right now because there's no one listed. Why is that? We've got 6 teams on buys this week. We've got a plethora of injuries in the league. It seems like everybody and their mother's banged up right now. This is not the time to start dropping players. If we've invested in guys and we own them right now, we're just going to keep them for the time being. Unless they've been hurt, not coming back for a while, whatever it may be. I am not recommending to drop anybody off your roster this week unless it is someone super, super low tier and you want to grab one of these guys to help out. But even if that's the case, again, everybody's hurt right now. So if you can move guys to IR, try to do it. If you got a guy on a buy and they're kind of a lower tier player, I would maybe try to drop them first and then pick somebody up. Really, I didn't want to do this section this week because it's really going to depend on rosters, who you have, league size, scoring, all of that. When there's 6 teams on a bye, it's really difficult to recommend dropping players just because we need so many guys to fill in. And just because Timmy Two Fingers and Johnny Sangria, okay, maybe they both own a guy and I'm like, hey, you got to drop this guy. And the one guy just listens and drops him right away. And the other guy's like, I don't know if I should. Maybe one guy doesn't have to drop him, right? Maybe he's got somebody else that he can drop. Maybe he's got an open spot. I don't want to confuse things this week, so I'm not listing anybody in that slot. Maybe it's the coward's way out of it. I don't care. I don't want to take a chance on somebody dropping somebody that they shouldn't with this many buys and injuries right now. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a whole lot of information packed together there for you really, really super quick. But that's going to do it for me in this video. Hopefully, you all have got some good pickups this week. Some good targets that you can grab and add to the roster. Do me a favor. If you appreciate the content, you got to hit that like button. Leave me a comment down below who's somebody that you're taking a shot at this week. And always, if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, you got to hit that subscribe button and become a part of Headliner Nation today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm out. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.